Welcome to Collective Silversations, where spirit leads, truth rises, and the real conversations happen. I'm Jody Jones, psychic medium, medical medium, frequency healer, and spiritual mentor. Every week, I sit down with world class visionaries, spiritual teachers, healers, entrepreneurs, disruptors, and truth tellers who carry keys for this moment in our collective evolution. We go beyond surface talk into the energies, the patterns, and the spiritual codes that activate deep healing, awaken higher consciousness, and call you into full energetic leadership of your life. These are the conversations that stir something inside you, and once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. Wherever you're tuning in, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready to step fully into the soulversation. Let's begin. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Collective Silversations. I am your host, Jody Jones, and I'm super excited to bring somebody new to you guys. This should be fun, interesting. We're going to keep it lively. And so I want to start off by saying so Collective Silversations is not a space for light, fluffy conversations. We're here to get into the real frequencies behind healing, the parts most people avoid, and so today's guest is one of those people you feel before you hear. Jessica Tanselle, or as many know her, Cha Cha, is a medicine woman, psychic medium, and ceremonialist who doesn't just talk about healing, she walks people through it, breath by breath, ceremony by ceremony. But let's be honest, in today's spiritual world, the term medicine woman gets thrown around like it's a trendy job title. So today, I want to ask her the deeper questions like, what does it really take to carry medicine? And how do you walk as a channel without losing yourself in the noise? And what
Mm.
happens when you open the door to plant medicines, breath work, and energy work, and all your unhealed shadows come rushing forward? So, if you've ever been drawn to spiritual healing work or you've been doing it long enough to see the cracks beneath the surface, this conversation will hit different. So, if you're ready for something more raw, real, and more revealing, let's drop in. Welcome, Jessica. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Jody. It's so great to be here. Thank you for your amazing words.
Awesome. I was telling Jessica before we started recording that I actually don't get a lot of time to watch YouTube videos or do a lot of scrolling. Because also the frequency of it is usually too much for me. But I just happened to be on my phone one day and Jessica came up in, she was on a podcast episode with my friend Chris, our friend Chris, which you guys know he's been on the show before. And there was just something about her energy that I stopped. And so I listened to her tell a little bit about her story. I honestly can't even remember the words that you were saying right now, but it was the energetic transmission that I felt into, and I was like, "Oh, she's good. Let's have her on the show." So I'm glad that the timing worked out and we got you to come here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Chris is a dear friend of mine. I'm so glad that you found me. And thank you for sharing that you felt my energy first. That was so kind.
Beautiful.
I've been watching your things as well and watching how you share your channel. And I just want to share with your audience that it is a beautiful channel. And I love how authentically you are teaching people how to tune into that energy, which is really important in all the work that we do.
I love that. Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate that for sure. I also noticed the little bit of, the twang in your, so is that because you're from where Chris is at Georgia, right? That's the,
Actually, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I've lived many places, and that is where I currently live as well.
Beautiful. I love a good accent, so that's wonderful. So
Yeah.
let's jump into this. So I know, and you know this, that there are millions of healers online now calling themselves medicine women, right? Like it's so what do you feel separates those who carry true medicine
Mm.
apart from those who are just performing an identity?
It is not mine to judge what other people call themselves, right? I can only kind of come from where I feel within mine. And also, we are the medicine. Like each of us, you are the medicine. The people that sit with the medicine person are the medicine because really the medicine is within, but the medicines we hold can vary because you can be a holder or a facilitator of breath work, of having soul conversations in your psychic and medium sessions. So the medicine is just different for each person. And really then it's in your intuition, which medicine person are you drawn to? Because it might not actually be just the person, but actually the medicine that they hold that is what you need next.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And but do you feel like, because it's interesting in the whole spiritual community and the spiritual guru teacher guide community, there are those that are the real deal. And I really feel like those are the ones, and I don't mean it's because, they've taken more classes, they've read more books, I feel like it's because they're the ones who have done more work on themselves. They've sat in the shit and come out of it and then can teach us how to do that. But you must pick up on, Spears just saying like the false identity of some that come online, right? That are,
Sure.
kind of like false prophets.
And sometimes it can be in the very beginning of their journey. It's like it comes online, they're starting to see future things of what they're going to be doing. And as psychics, we get messages way early, right? So they could be really online and really seeing things that are coming in the future. And yes, there are many who will hold medicine as soon as they've tried it. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. I got this. And
Right.
it is really big work to hold medicine because, as a medicine person, as we hold medicine and we offer this medicine, one, it's my responsibility to try it first. I should have already worked with, sat with, talked with, ingested this medicine before I give it to another. And also through that isn't just sitting with the medicine because the experience is just a portion when we're
Mhm.
talking plant medicine, when we're talking deep conscious breath work, when we're talking cacao, ayahuasca, wachuma, mushrooms. When you go into this process and you are sitting with it and getting it to know it, it is, as the medicine woman, as the medicine person, going to bring up your deep shadows. One, because you got to heal your stuff, right? We got to be able to heal our stuff to be able to see yours. If
Right.
I'm going to dig that deep, I can't help you dig that deep if I'm not digging that deep. I can
Right.
only see so far. So it's a responsibility, but also it's holding more light to hold the energy that you're walking into, because many of the people that I work with, they're drawn to me. This isn't something that is for everyone. It's usually something that you're drawn to a facilitator or you're drawn to a medicine. And
Mhm.
so people are drawn to me in that process. I trust that they are getting the medicine that they need, but through that, I can help them in their process. It's important both ways. Like, if you're not doing the process, if you're not sitting with the medicine, how can you help another? But also, as I sit with another, it's pretty common that I will see my own story, my own trauma.
Right.
I have to sit with mine and just ground it,
Yeah.
grounding it into the earth. Like, okay, I see you. Thank you.
Right.
I'll talk
Right.
to you later. I got to take care of this person right now.
Yeah.
And so I ground it into the earth, but also that helps me to fully see the energy that they're in because
Yes.
it's familiar. Will it always be familiar? No, but as a psychic, as a medium, as a healer, we're tuning in to the energy and how can we hold space best for that person in the medicine and not have done the deep work, not have sat with your shadow pieces, your ego pieces, your human pieces, and opened up to even more of your channel. That helps you to be able to hold space for another. And it's so important. And jumping right into that work without learning it, without dedicating it in your ritual is a really difficult road for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool that you like all of the highlights that you were giving because it brings perspective and it reminds me of, all of the times on my journey. It's always been like that. So back in 2010, which was really kind of like when I feel like my ascension, for lack of better, but cracked like wide open. It was like, okay, we need you. You're working now. Get in the light. We're doing this stuff for you. And I used to suffer really, really intensely with chronic dizziness and vertigo back then. And I owned my own wellness center at the time. So, I was busy. I had clients. I was a registered acupuncturist, practiced traditional Chinese medicine. So I was seeing all these people. And then all of a sudden, all of my new patients that were coming to me were all booking because they suffered from vertigo.
Mm.
And and I at the time I wasn't working professionally as a medium or a psychic. I think, and back then I don't even think I was calling myself an empath. It's funny how we forget how before, before, Google and Facebook and all of that stuff, we were like, we had to figure this stuff out on our own, right?
Hmm.
I can remember sitting at my desk one day and I had another new client that was coming in with vertical and I was like, is this like a cosmic joke? Like I can't even help myself at this point. I'm like trying to do my best and you're bringing these people that are like counting on me to cure them and heal them and what's the so it's very interesting exactly the way you painted that of how people are brought to us in the divine timing as needed. But also I feel like for every healer, guru, guide out there, teacher, that keeping the humbleness of like, okay, so I see in you what I have in me. And if it's coming in again, it's coming in so that I can heal it and transform it and, do all of the stuff I'm supposed to do. And I feel
Yeah.
like even to this day, many years later, still doing the work, I still am getting clients that show up with my stuff in them. And it'll be like, oh, okay. So thank you. Because this is an opportunity for me to hold space for both of us as we go through this healing. So thanks for bringing that perspective back. So, Jessica, I want to ask, so before you were a healer,
Mm.
who were you? Like, who was
Oh my
Jessica before the
God.
titles, before the ceremonies?
Yeah, great. So, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up and went to a performing arts high school. So I'm like musical theater queen. I love to sing, act, and dance. I finished college for dental hygiene. So, dental hygienist, performing in theater. I'm an
Mhm.
auntie. So that is, and that's where Cha Cha really came from, is my nephew, who couldn't say Jessica. It sounded like Cha Cha, and they are, such a big part of my life. So that is a big piece of who I am, aside from the healer and the ceremony and
Yeah.
spiritual
That's so
life.
cool. So, but how did it happen for you? Like you just woke up one day and went, okay, so I'm not going to clean any more people's teeth. Now I'm going to start
Uh,
channeling spirit.
it wasn't so much of that. Actually, interesting, your journey started in 2010 and you jumped in. Mine started in 2009. I was taking a shower and I heard this thought. It said, Jessica, tell your mom I love her and I'm sorry I wasn't there for her. And I was like, what? Before I
Mhm.
could finish thinking, why would I talk to myself that way? I knew what had happened. I knew who it was. Called my mom, told her. She was like, Jessica, I got that message 5 years ago from a friend of ours that's a world-renowned psychic, and we'd known her for many years. She said she gave me the letter M. I thought it was my brother Mike. I was like, nope, nope. It was this person. This is their message, and she passed tragically 8 months later.
Oh,
And
wow.
so during that time, it was really scary for me. I was in an abusive relationship. My life was not healthy. So I really pushed it off. And my guides since have been like, my bad, because there were a couple of scary things that happened around it that
Yeah.
really I was like, I don't know what's happening. I'm not having it. But I was
Right.
already seeing spirit. I was hearing spirit. I was experiencing them really near, which was scary. But about 5 years later, after my dad passed, I started studying with a mentor in Louisville, with mentors in Lilydale, New York, and I went to Arthur Findlay in England.
Oh,
And I
wow.
really like discovered like how do I, really hone into my psychic ability, but really I've had some amazing mediumship teachers that, what an honor to get to work with these teachers. So I took that first year to really study, but I was already offering readings. I was already working in sessions one-on-one, still studying, and then moved into platform mediumship. And from there, my healing began.
Right.
like after that and all the shifts and the changes, there was something more that I needed. And I was feeling stuck in my depression, in my anxiety. I had everything great going. I was still working dental hygiene, by the way, also working my spiritual business, also learning, also being an auntie, right? And so I had all of that going. And I just was overwhelmed, overstimulated, trying to really work hard. And then I knew I had been having things cross my path about plant medicine. And I was like, this is what I need. This is what
Right.
I need. And so I started researching and I talked to a couple of teachers before I found the right one. And there were different reasons why those teachers just didn't work out. It wasn't divine timing, one period, the end, right?
Right.
But,
Right.
but it just wasn't the right person. And so finally, I sat with medicine and I was like, whoa, I don't think I've ever been that present,
Hmm.
ever. Always anxious, always thinking back, always trying to like evaluate self. Like these were the things I was looking at in
Yeah.
myself.
Right.
Day one plant medicine. That's like 10 years right there, right? And so I was really able to be present, and that was what drew me into plant medicine. And so then I started experiencing the depth of plant medicine and the healing that it offered me while I was offering sessions. Ceremony had already been a big part of my journey. I started leading moon classes as soon as I started developing. So it was like it was just there, just
Right.
was
Right.
something that channeled through. And so through my healing work and starting to bring in plant medicines, even my monthly ceremonies have shifted. And so that work brought me into plant medicine. I started holding goddess retreats, really
Wow.
bringing women together to heal, working with the womb, healing the yoni, doing yoni steams, really leaning into the goddess energy and really letting them sit with plant medicine to really discover within, because that plant medicine, all of them are about remembering.
Hmm.
All of them are about understanding ourselves. And the more that I've been able to understand myself, it is still my daily goal, because I feel like we always have more healing. You talk
Yeah.
about it like, here it is again. I'm like, yeah, girl, it
Yeah.
is. Here it is again. Let's
Yeah.
peel the next layer of the onion, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Always a
hold
work
each
in
other
progress,
hand.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So, and it's just brought me, I feel so honored to be able to hold medicine, to
Yeah.
be able to hold space for others. And it's taken me along my own journey. And when you get on the spiritual path, like when you start that journey, that next level into this is what I'm doing for my healing, it's a train. It
Hmm.
just keeps going and taking you all these deep, dark pits and all these really magical places of paradise. Like they're both on that train. And you just
Absolutely.
got to be willing, right, to go up and down.
Yeah, for sure it's a calling. It's absolutely, we answer the call, and there was definitely parts of us at times that resisted. I know for me, there was, I had held so much fear and trauma and wounds in my physical body, that when things started cracking open for me, it was like, okay, so there's no more pushing things under the rug. Like this is, it's time to come up. So I'm sure that they've done this for you, but was there a moment where spirit wrecked your life? Like just wrecked it in order for you to wake up?
Yeah, I feel like this has happened a few times in my life
Do you want to?
because of the resistance. And I think the resistance can cause it to happen a little more often. Um,
Absolutely.
so actually, the past few years have been wild. They have
Yeah.
been wild. I started working in my own healing work with plant medicine in 2019, started leading retreats in 2020, really working side by side with a teacher to bring retreats on my own from there. And as I did my healing work and I started leading retreats and drawing in those that are really meant to sit in this work and the energy that channels through, right?
Hmm.
I had so many people shift around me.
Yeah.
Cycles of people shift and fall to where it was just me. And
Right.
then it was like my work was shifting, and so it was changing, and people were falling away there.
Hmm.
And my home was changing, and everything fell apart. And this is just like within the past few years.
Right.
And it's been a process over those years to where it was like, okay, here we are. What now? And it
Yeah.
was just like, cha cha, just sit still for a minute. And then I'd get going. They were like, no, no, mm-mm. Sit down for a minute, just be, because it's been continual work spiritually, physically, emotionally, really getting things moving in life. And finally, Spirit's like, why don't you sit and just be for a minute?
Mm.
And that is what the whole tear down was, because it's often and always will be a rebuild.
Mhm.
But if you really are in flow with your intuition, you might still get these like life is going to shift. And also, the more that you lean into what your intuition is telling you, like releasing or tuning into that resistance and being like, okay, I know
Yeah.
you're there, but we're going to move through this. There's a little less bump in the road sometimes. And also, I trusted that that was the process I needed to go through, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's and they
Woo!
do it the same way. I'll say that, our guides will often, they'll be, and I mean, this because you communicate with the spirit world, and it's very subtle communication. It's very, people, because on TV shows and, the Long Island medium messed everything up for everybody. But it's very subtle. They communicate very subtly, and if we don't get it, if we don't receive it, they get the frying pan out and they, like, crack us on the head. And I feel like some of us have just kind of been blessed that way of getting the good old crack
Yeah.
on the head. So
Yeah.
so what's one part of your shadow that you resisted the longest and that you now realize was the key to your power?
Ooh. Well, let's see. Okay, yeah. My intuition, how about that? My channel, right? It's been a journey, and if you are developing your channel, I'm just going to tell you, it's a journey, right? So, through the process, it's you get to know your channel and it opens, and then there are these moments that you go through that are like, okay, but was that right? Like, I don't have any proof of this. And
Mhm.
so really leaning in and trusting my channel, which in turn is trusting myself, right? Because it's all connected.
Yeah.
That one goes through phases of like feeling really high. It probably took me a few years to really get from where I wasn't resisting it so much. But
Mhm.
the less I resist that and the more I trust and lean into that. And I feel like I have a constant communication throughout the day with my channel, with my intuition. But that is my superpower, because it's not just about work for me. And it should be for everybody, about the about your life, about your decisions, about your path. Like, it is about me leading forward,
Mhm.
about me
Right.
being myself. So
Yeah.
the more that I've leaned into that and stopped resisting my channel, my intuition, that feels really good, because it just is in all aspects of what I do.
Yeah, it's huge. And I feel like surrender is part of that big lesson that's in there. That was a tough one for me. As somebody, very I'm Aries, type A personality,
Mm,
right? It's,
mhm,
I'm want everything to be exact.
mhm,
I was, developing my mediumship skills, and, and I had a teacher in the beginning to kind of make sense of it because I had all of these clairs and I didn't understand them, and they were scaring me at sometimes. um, I feel like that surrendering is that, where you have to come in. And I can remember, getting to the point where I would be, going to go into a reading for a client, and, the nerves kick in because people, back in the day when I was doing the one on one mediumships, people were coming because they had lost a child in an accident,
mhm.
or, their spouse was murdered. Like, these were big, heavy, dark, and you sit there and, the humbleness of it, and you're like, oh my god, what if what if I sit there and nobody comes through for these people, and what if I don't say the right things that are going to make them feel better, and like all of this pressure. And I can remember getting ready for a client one day, and spirit said to me loud and clear, this is not about you.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Okay," and it was like this big weight just kinda released off of me, and of course, I got the goosebumps because that's how, they validate for me sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I was like, so after that moment, when I would start to feel the rush of anxiety coming in of like, how do I show up? What if I make a mistake? Blah, blah, blah. I would say, remember, this is not about me.
Mhm.
And as soon as I would do that, and you would know this just frequency wise, as soon as we go into that place of surrender, our frequency actually rises.
Mhm.
And when our frequency rises, we become open energetically. And then our spirit teams can actually communicate with us in such a more profound, powerful way, right?
Mhm.
Which is huge for sure. Yeah.
I
So
feel the same way. Yeah.
yeah, I knew that you would resonate with you for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as you talk and you talk about your journey and your path, I feel like we've had such similar. Maybe it's like, there's a specific template that we don't know about and they're like, "Oh, well here's your mission. Here's actually all of the we're not going to tell you all the job requirements of it, but this
I'll
is
take
what."
CA, please.
Yeah, right, exactly, for sure, yeah. So,
Oh,
I know that you facilitate deep
yeah.
ceremony work, but let's be real about something. So, ceremony often cracks people wide open, right?
Mhm.
So, what's
Yeah.
one of the scariest things that you've witnessed people confront in sacred space?
Mhm. Ceremony does crack you wide open. Um, I work with ceremony, whether it's with or without medicine, because ceremony really is about intention and what you're calling in. So, not everyone wants to work in psychedelic plant medicine. Some will work with cacao, some will work with breath and energy work. So, any of those can really break open deep seated traumas, awarenesses
Mhm.
that are sitting within us that we have sometimes completely blocked, and some we might be aware of. But I've seen people unlock sexual traumas that they didn't know that they had,
Right.
and then unlock who it was, and it being someone very close. And that's a really, really big thing to unlock that you didn't know about.
Right, yes.
And so moving into these shadows, it does not always happen that way. But that is a really scary thing if there's a process going through something like that of like, whoa, one, is that real? Because I didn't even know that was there.
Mhm.
And then understanding the depths of it's real. And then how you integrate that that is a part of something that your human self has experienced. So the remembering can come in many ways. And also, you can ask spirit to help you release things that maybe you don't need to see.
Right,
There's
right.
often there is a feeling it that needs to process the somatic of it, the physical release, the somatic release, the emotional release. However, you don't always have to see it to feel it. But these are big things that our bodies can hold on to because energetically, when we go through a process, it's like the trauma happens, our soul is like, "Phew, okay, I'll be right here for a second. Whoa.
Right, yeah.
Whoa. And then now, when we're going through this breath work, when we're going through sacred ceremony, when we're sitting with plant medicines, we open this door and we like let that soul piece come back. And we then integrate it into the human body and into the soul through that soul retrieval again. The body can then feel it emotionally, physically.
Right.
And then you've just really brought it in through that spiritual channel. And
Yes.
that has been one of the hardest. And it was a big process for that, for that person that had to bring that in. And there should be after ceremony, which is why I really work in a sessions, like 6 sessions, because there's a process in that, because now you got to integrate that. You can't just let it sit there.
Mhm.
We gotta just integrated in through discussing it, through energetically working on that in the system, through moving it through the breath, through bringing in daily ritual, through bringing in meditation, really tuning into self,
Yeah.
because that's something so big.
Right.
It takes time. That might take you a year to
Right.
integrate that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's just like, if as an example, you had an accident and then you had a surgery and then you had, physical therapy after it, you had like there's this whole process for sure of the recovery of it. And I know, you hear this all of the time. You've got to feel it to heal it. And I agree with that 1,000%. But I feel like too, we're on like the precipice of something kind of like, cracking open for us on the frequency scope
Mhm.
of things that my team shows me all of the time. And that's as in, just as an example, and I'm not, downplaying anybody's trauma or wounds in any way, shape, or form. But when I feel in energetically to somebody talk about, a horrific trauma or a drama that's happened to them, it's very much the mind grabbing it, right? And yes, the physical body is involved there. So we know that there's the ego, the pain body, all of that in there. But when we take out the mind, the brain, and my spirit team has been calling it the AI brain lately, which is starting to make more and more sense to me. When
Mm.
we take that out, there's a whole bunch of programming that stops with the interaction.
Mhm.
And then the soul remembering can be like, okay, I understand the purpose of that.
Yeah.
I understand what I needed to get out of that.
Yeah.
The big picture of it, right?
Yes, the you become the observer of the situation. You're able to step aside and be like, okay,
Yes.
I get it. I
Yes.
I I got it. One, I got it, spirit, and also you can then shift what you're doing in that moment. And
Yes.
I also feel on that note that oftentimes when we are triggered in the current, it's not actually always about this. And also it's not about
Right.
the other person. If I'm triggered, it's about me.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
about me, and that's where I need to be the observer and be like, "Oh, why did that trigger you, Cha-Cha? And
Right.
what actually is that deeper to where
Yes.
actually my 4-year-old just tried to lead and it wasn't happening,
Right.
because it actually it's not necessarily this person that
Version of you.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's another. And so
Yes.
that allows us as we are able to become the observer. And I feel like it takes time to become the observer sometimes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and becoming the observer, you then can say, oh, okay, this is my part in this.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, and that's
Absolutely.
a big deal on the healing journey is like, oh, my
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And also I find it to be some of the hardest work is when you start looking at your things and you're like, dang, let me go work on that.
Yeah, yeah, let me work on that for a little bit more. Yeah, and it's, and as somebody who reads energy for a living, when somebody talks about their wounds or their traumas or their experiences, it's very interesting because some people will, it's very much outside of themselves. So it's very much in a recall, like, I just watched a movie and that's what happened in the movie. But others have it still as their identity, right? Like they still have it
Yeah,
in there, and there has to be that you have to get into the role of the observer in that and recognize again that was just like a play or a movie playing out and you were an actor, you had a role in it, but it's not your identity. It's not who you are. Right? That's which is I think is a big healing point for so many, many people to go through.
it is. And in certain situations that you go through, certain traumas that you've sat with either new or for years, when they come up, sometimes we can get stuck in that frequency of it happening because this is real. This is where we are in the human. It's like,
Right.
this really did just happen. And really, it's about then going through the process of release and getting out of the stagnancy of it, right? The frequency is like, I don't know what's happening. I can't let it go and I can't rise. So it's like having to sit in it and look at it for a minute, like what
Right.
happened.
Right.
And in those stuck moments, those are really moments that are great to reach out to someone for help. And you'll know, or
Mhm.
someone I hope around you will help you to know that, hey, for 6 weeks, 6 months, the last year, I feel like we've been talking about this. How can I help support you?
Right.
Or you've noticed it for yourself and you can ask for a healer because going through a process with a healer or a psychic or a medium or the channel that you, my friends out there, choose because in some way or fashion, wherever you're called, it's right. But those are the things that these energy healings, these ceremonies can help you move through is seeing why you're stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this is not really a big deal. this is something that I tend to do is attached to this. And this is what I'm struggling to let go of. So it allows you to see a little bit deeper where the trigger is too. And you're right. Like it's a part of the victim mode, right? It's like this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. But when we're able to step out and be the observer, we're like, oh, that did happen to me. And also it happened for me. I just
Mhm.
learned this thing.
Mhm.
And it can be levels on the physical, on the emotional, on the spiritual that you just learned and shifted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I have 3 children, 21, 20, and 18, and so you learn so much with your children and
Yeah.
through your children. And with my daughter, if she's got something going on that is like just the end of the world, and it's all, and I'll say to her, just get it out of your brain for a little bit. So just get your journal and write about it, or talk to somebody about, like, just get it out energetically, because again, when
Yeah.
it's in that AI brain, it
Yeah.
starts running with the programs, and then the programs solidify it, and then it becomes this. But when you dissect it and you pull it out and you can see it clearly, I always say, Spirit always shows me this. If you were in my face, right, nose to nose, and you said to me, "What color are my eyes?" I would be like, "I can't even see them." How can you not see them? You are so close. You are so close to me. How can you not see my eyes?
Yeah.
But we need to create that space. And literally, that's what we can do. We can literally take this, okay, this is my wound. This is my trauma. This is what I'm dealing with right now. Inside my brain, it feels huge. Like it feels like it's all encompassing. But if I give myself permission to dissect it, take it out, put it on the shelf, put it on the plate, put it outside, I can really see things for what they are. I can see the big picture of things. And energetically, I've just created space.
Mhm.
I know it sounds so
I
simple. I'm making but it really is. Like, we complicate the shit out of things, right?
Well, and sometimes that's where the resistance is like, this
Yeah.
has got to be more difficult, right? But it
Right.
is, I agree 100% that the journaling, the getting it out, the processing it, the talking about it is helpful.
Mhm.
And that does open up new pathways to figure out what to do because we've processed it out of this mind. Those are the best ways. And those are things that you can bring in daily. And maybe
Right.
it's not about a big process, but like, ooh, I feel joy today. Man,
Yes.
that's a great line for your journal, you know?
Yes.
But getting
Yes.
into a ritual of even breathing because, or meditation, breath work, they go hand in hand. Really getting
Mhm.
into my breath work. I focus on breath in and breath out and bringing the meditation piece into that because when I hyper focus on that breath in and breath out, that clears me from being in the program. And
Absolutely.
then it allows my intuition to then open to the other pathways. So these are things that we all can utilize as
Yeah, free
processing
tools.
this.
They're the free tools.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So in a world that's addicted to high vibes only, because that's what
Yeah.
everybody's talking about. Why do you think true healing requires people to walk directly into the uncomfortable?
Oh man, well, why do we go through the things that are uncomfortable in life anyway? I think it's the balance of having to go through it and the release of holding on. Um, I wish that it were all sunshine and rainbows and moving up, but to be able to reach that higher frequency, we have to release the lower density. And some of that is what we've gone through physically, in our bodies or emotionally, the things that we grew up learning. They're also a big piece of what we learned in our programs that we carry within us that we chose before we got here. And
Mhm.
so I feel like it's a big piece of being able to hold more light. And we
Right.
all do want to hold more light. That is the higher frequency. And the more light that we're holding as we are raising the frequency here, we are helping others raise their frequency. And it's unfortunate that we have to go through the uncomfortable, but it is what it is it's about releasing what we've already experienced a lot of the times. Are there
Yes.
lessons that also come along that you're in an uncomfortable thing again? Yep. There's a lesson that you put it on your path when you picked your path, you hit the point. this is something you had to learn, but going back through a spiritual journey and finding out this new trauma or going back and looking at this trauma, why do that? This is a
Right.
deep question. Like, why? I've had many people, why are
Right.
you
I
doing
wouldn't
that?
choose it. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it actually, once I release it, I'm not triggered by it the same way. And when I am, I'm like, oh, onion layer. Let me go sit with that. There's
Exactly.
that one big trauma or two big traumas that might come up once a year that now that I look at them, I'm a whole different person,
Right.
a
Yeah.
whole different reaction than I would have been before I looked at it,
Yes, for
before
sure.
I somatic released it. And breath work is a great way to release somatically, to
Mhm.
release it, to detox the body, to heal the body, to allow it to move through the body and it not be this big psychedelic journey. However, those conscious breathwork sessions, they are, in a sense, very psychedelic and are releasing the DMT within the body. And so
Mhm.
it allows that type of experience in a shorter session, but also is really moving it through the breath. So there's so many different ways to have those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I feel like, we're all calibrated a little bit differently, right? Like we all so just as an example, because as you were talking, they were showing me I went to this breathwork ceremony once. It was quite a while ago, but and it's weird because I've had a couple of experiences like this where we do you do the breath work and they were great teachers, like very qualified, and it was a very safe, sacred place. But for whatever reason, and maybe Jessica, you can feel into this, intuitively, psychically, and let me know what you get. But for whatever reason, when I go in and I do that breath work, I pop out of body so fast. Like I literally just, and if anybody is ever consciously aware, because we do it all the time, right? You do it before you go to sleep, you do, but for some of us, we have that conscious awareness of it, and it would frighten me. I'd be like, "Oh, okay, so you know what? So now I'm in this ceremony with all these people and we're doing this deep breathing and okay, I'm going to slow my breathing down. I'm going to come because I need to come back into my body because as soon as I start doing the breathing with everybody else, boom, I'm gone. I'm out of my body."
Ah. So, yes, absolutely. You are very in tune with your spirit and you're able to see as soon as it pops out. And doing these deep conscious breathwork sessions, it does lift you into altered states of consciousness. And it's very out of body to where
Mhm.
you actually are at a point where your body's not even breathing at times.
Right.
And then you become back aware of your body and you start breathing again. So I'm not surprised to hear that you lifted out of body. It very much is an out of body experience, but and also your body is getting what it needs through oxygen and it is releasing somatically. The slower pace, because I moved from a slow to a moderate to a slow pace again,
Mhm.
that slow pace is quite potent.
Mhm.
Like you can get so much. You can feel re-energized. You are getting the meditation. You are getting the rest. Your body is detoxing and not have to lift into those altered states of consciousness. And also, when you're in those deep states where you are out of body, just bringing your hands back to your body rather than being open can
Right.
be helpful. Or bringing in sound so you can still keep going with your breath, but bringing more activity into your movement to keep your soul in the body as well.
Oh, that's
And
good. Yeah.
also, on a spiritual note, with setting your boundaries and your protections, you're in this sacred container with your teacher. Your teacher does want you to come back, but also, what is it that your soul has popped out to explore? And can
Mhm.
you, in that space, ask your soul, okay, we're out of body. What do we need to explore? Do you want to,
Right.
are you going to be over my own body healing? Can
Right. Yeah.
can your higher self then work on your body for you?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's and I think and too, it was also at a time where I was still doing a lot of healing. Like a couple of years ago, I completely crashed and burnt. I had my
Mhm.
dark night of my soul. I had my entire physical body was out for the count. And so because my nervous system was, so damaged, I feel like doing that kind of stuff was just like, it was so raw for me to be doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's, I love the way that You brought some perspective into that. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
So, plant medicine, we're going to go back into the world of plant medicine. So, I know they have become, trends on Instagram, right? So, where do you see the danger in the way people are rushing into these experiences without proper preparation or integration?
Hmm. Well, I think that it is an issue in general if you're rushing in and you're not researching, you don't have someone that's prepping you. That's really a red flag there if you're being rushed in and you're not having support after. So that's really is one of the main issues. Because going into something like this, you really need to be prepared for the roller coaster, for the possibility. Could it feel like bliss and joy the whole time? Yes, and probably not. If you're being called to or drawn into plant medicine, I'd say you're being called for a reason. And then it's really needing to not rush, but to decide who is the best facilitator for you.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes it's not always the medicine that you think it needs to be. It might need to be a person. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but
Hmm.
getting in tune with your intuition and knowing that, okay, plant medicine is calling me, then you can start to research where's a facilitator that you can work with and
Right.
who are you drawn to? And actually, maybe you are researching the medicines. There's so many places to research and get great feedback from even psychologists about plant
Right.
medicines that are out there.
Yes. Yeah.
But, having a preparation is important for the diet
Hmm.
because the diet actually is going to help to cleanse your system physically so
Right.
that you are then able to welcome in the energy to digest the medicines, whether it is a sacred mushroom or wachuma or ayahuasca,
Hmm.
whatever one it is, you are dedicating your body and saying, I'm ready to hear you. I'm
Hmm.
ready to be a partner with you and
Right.
with you and have this conversation. So
Right.
you're physically preparing your body. When you physically prepare your body, you then also have a gentler, typically process. And
Right.
also your process will be exactly what it is meant to be through your intention with the plant medicine.
Yeah, that makes
And
total
your
sense.
sacred container matters, but also on the emotional part of it, going in for this experience and then being done. I feel like that's pretty common that I'm going to have the experience and I'll be good.
Right.
Because it is like 10 years of therapy in one night. It really is a big experience. And also you got to integrate the 10 years of therapy. So going in to have this experience and feel healed, doesn't typically happen that way.
Right. Right.
Okay. It's like
It's not a
the,
one and done.
mm-mm.
No. Yeah.
Mhm. And it can be a one medicine journey and done. Absolutely. But after the medicine journey, having a therapist, having your integration coach, having a spiritual healer, a medium that's helping you process
Right.
what
Yeah.
you just went through is important because
Yeah.
you really, depending on the medicine, you are going out into the cosmos.
Hmm.
You are going or deep into the earth to gain knowledge, to
Right.
connect with this plant. And that is just one experience. It will continue for 8 to 12 weeks after the experience. And you
Right.
need to
Yeah.
be prepared for that. The slowdown before, the slowdown after, the allowing yourself space instead of jumping right from corporate America onto the plane, into the journey, out of the journey, back into corporate America. That's a lot. Can you do it? Yes. Also, please have your healer on speed dial because it's a big process. Because for me, I find I know my process pretty well. I'm like on the rush of the trip and the experience, which could have been laughter, could have been a lot of tears too, been both. It's
Right.
been
Right.
both, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then I get home and it takes me a few days, and then Thursday hits, and I'm like, oh. Okay, this is it. And so sometimes you need to be able to cancel your day. Being
Right.
prepared, I try to always prepare. Hey, this is a possibility.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I will give you the sunshine and rainbows because it is worth it. It is
Right.
worth it, but it is deep and it is
Absolutely.
emotional. And there's the joy of it too. I love seeing the blissful journeys, and also some of them I've been crying for hours.
Right.
in
Yeah.
hours, so.
Huge, huge releases for sure.
And
Yes.
I think that's why you need to be prepared is for because there's a pre-journey process before you even take the plant into your body, or maybe you just go sit and you're in the energy of it. Before that process, you're already told the medicine you're coming, and the medicine is already working with your system.
Yeah, it's so hard to, I feel like that's why, we have guides like yourself, that can show us the way so that we're not just blindly trying to navigate it all on our own because we're not meant to do
Yeah.
that. Now, I know so spirit will demand a price when you carry medicine. I'm sure that you've kind of learned this along the way so far. What has it cost you? So what have you had to sacrifice or surrender to
Mm,
stand in the work that you do?
mm. Um, hmm. I can't say there hasn't been a sacrifice that hasn't been worth it, right?
Yeah. I know, like, for me, it was very early on when they started to give me my gifts and I started to open up to the channeling and all of that. I couldn't drink alcohol anymore. I couldn't smoke weed. Everything had such a counterintuitive frequency. So it became a really bad experience when I would do it. And at some point, they I don't know if you heard the term hollow bone before,
Mhm,
where they need us to be as clear a channel as possible so that no interference comes in, so when they are giving the transformational messages, the guides, all of that, it's not coming through a filter,
mhm.
which is and it may seem like I've had students say, oh, well, that's such a great calling, that what an honor to be able to, but it also meant that I couldn't hang around with my friends anymore. It meant that I couldn't have a glass of red wine on a Friday night and relax because so there are sacrifices that answering the calling does. But I love that you're like, so you must be more, obviously you're not a type A personality. You're more adaptive. You were more like going with the flow, like, okay.
I do, and there are, and like when I think into it, well, one, I think about the people
Right. That have been
that I've
removed.
had to let go of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
People I loved, and actually they're just at a distance now.
Right.
But is a big piece of that alcohol? Yeah, I haven't had alcohol in at least, well, almost 4 years.
Right.
So alcohol, but it was how my body was reacting to it, and that does change the people around you. But also, sweets, sugar,
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
to really help my body. My body is really sensitive to sugar and also craves it. I mean, that is one of the things I've had to shift.
Mm.
So alcohol kind of was a natural adaptation for me because I'd had many times with it in my life that were really unhealthy. And
Right. Right.
so then that kind of phased out. But that phasing out and the change in what I was working with in my medicines phased people out. And that was a big sacrifice because I was felt so close. And also it was necessary. So was it hard? Yes, I went through so many cycles that I was like, whoa, people just shifted again. It
Mhm.
really, I went through a lot of heartbreak through that
Right.
process, and
Yeah.
also was able to stand up and say, no, this is where I need to be able to stand fully in my power and in my truth.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
yeah, and
beautiful.
I think there's many, but I think the one that was top for me was people,
Yeah. And
that
it's
was,
huge, and people don't, people always say, you see the memes everywhere of, people are removed from your life so that new people can come in. But let me tell you, it changes your sense of identity because you were like, "Oh, well, these were my people. I thought this was my tribe. I thought it was," and then
yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, "Well, no, now you're not one of the tribe members anymore." Okay, so it's like they vote you off the island and now you're on the island by yourself, right?
Yeah, and on purpose of like needing to heal something there,
Oh
and
yeah.
even sometimes the codependency or
Yes.
um
Yes.
there are reasons why, and it's not always something in the moment, and that I've held on with resistance to like I love this person. And spirit just telling me, no, you have to let go
Right. Yes.
because
Yeah.
this is actually holding you here.
Yes,
And I think
absolutely.
you can listen to when it's just like, actually, no, you're not going to call them this Friday. You're going to do something different. And when you listen that gently, it's like a gentle fade,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Instead of letting it be a big bump in the road.
Yeah.
Because
So
you
there's a
keep
big
people
shock.
in your life at a distance, it's just less. And it's hard when it's family. And I've seen that
Oh
happen
yeah.
for many. Like,
Yeah.
as you are going through your process, you're going through this spiritual process that they aren't familiar with. And
Mhm.
so it's different hanging out even with family.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also having that, you know, that sense of obligation to family, right? Of being like, well,
Sure.
that's your family. That's your but there, you have to honor your path at some point and honor your calling at some point and be like, okay, so you know what? I'm being called to rise above. I can't rise above when I'm continually, around people that trigger the density in me that I'm trying to get rid of and not trying to, add more fire to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big part of our journey. So let's talk about the trap of spiritual identity.
Oh
So,
gosh.
so how do you stay human, messy, real, fully alive while still holding your role as a channel?
Oh man, I just try to be real honest. I try to be as honest and truthful and authentic as I can be. If
Yeah,
I make a mistake, I just try to be like, okay, I made a mistake and own
right.
it. I
Right.
try to be present in each moment. When I see things that actually aren't my favorite part of who I'm being in the moment, I try to really look at that and just really tune into what's triggered within me. What can I see here and shift? So in my world, the more that I've tuned into myself, that has helped me the most.
I
That has
love
been
that.
the most helpful.
Yeah. Know thyself, right?
Yeah, and it's helped me to understand myself more and how I work and what I need to
Mhm.
function at my optimal frequency, right?
Right.
And the
Yes.
more I talk about, even down to if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm around people, I'm very vocal of like, I'm feeling anxious in this moment. Please be patient with me.
Good for you. That I
Or
love that. More people need permission to do that, right?
I think clear communication is so important. If I don't know that you're in a process and you're sitting right next to me, hey, I can't really function right now. I'm here in my head. I just
Yeah.
need a minute. You tell me
Yeah.
that, cool. Let me know if I can support you.
Right.
More
Yes.
that we are able to understand ourselves and the more we can clearly communicate, we come into this loving relationship with all people in our lives.
Absolutely.
More that
Yeah.
we understand that we can love each other even more. And I feel
Yes.
like that is so helpful.
Yeah, and we take some of the ideals that are incorrect out of the spiritual closet. So, how many times, because I am probably the most energetic sensitive person that I know. I've yet to meet somebody who is as, but there's times where I will be in if I'm around a lot of people or if there's, certain spaces and if I come out and I say, "Oh, you know what? I need to like go and breathe. I need to go ground. I need to go." And then somebody will overhear it and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm feeling that too. I thought I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want somebody to think that something was wrong with me." I'll be
Yeah.
like, "No, nothing's wrong with you. Which is this is
Yeah.
actually going on. You're not imagining it, but we don't have to sit here and let ourselves suffer through it. We can like ground and center and
Yes, we don't ever have to sit uncomfortable again. And that
right. Right?
about knowing yourself and being like, actually, I don't have to be right in this position or in this moment or
Yeah.
go do that thing that I actually don't want to go do. Like the more
Right, right.
we really honor ourselves, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. So what's one thing that you think the spiritual community is completely bullshitting itself about right now? I know it's a big question.
I think it is actually what comes immediately is the love and light.
Yeah.
Because actually, y'all, I got some real emotion over here. And
Yes.
it's not all love and light. Actually, I get mad, I get frustrated, I have anxiety, and I'm a healer. I have all of that. And
Right.
it is all welcome. When
Right.
we decide I'm just going to be love and light, and I don't have to look at that. We are pushing it more down in our body,
Yes.
holding on to the density, when instead it could be like, love and light, and I'm going to release this. Actually, release it more up to the light. So, but when we put ourselves in that love and light, we are like, oh, well, don't be sad about this situation, or don't feel your emotion, or just because that happened doesn't mean you have to tell us about it. Like we're
Mhm.
shutting the shadow out. We're
Mhm.
shutting out the reality of
Right.
actually I have this deep emotion and it's okay to feel it. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel depressed. It doesn't mean you're a depressed person. It means you're having something release that's been depressed because we stored it. And it just needs to come out and be witnessed in its emotion,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
we tend to want to be like, oh, I can't be that.
Mhm.
Yes, you can. It's okay.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
don't you text your bestie or your healer and say, "Can you send me some support? I'm in my process. Feel real
Yes.
low today." Because
Yes.
that's it. Is when we
Yes.
can really know how to communicate and honor that we have the real emotion. And in some of them, tune in, well, all of them tune in, period. But
Right.
in some of them, tuning into, is there something there that you can really look at deeper? Is there a jealousy or an envy that really needs to be untied and released?
Mhm.
Is there a worry or a doubt that you've held on to way too long that's not real anymore? Is there
Right.
something rooted that you learned way young that we can untie and release
Right.
just a little bit more within it?
Yes, yeah, I love that. And that's I encourage everybody and I love it when I see other, healers, guides, gurus, teachers doing it, being raw and being real and just showing up in their authentic self and being like, yeah, you know what? This is me. And I very much have many human aspects still in my avatar. I always say, there's no ascended masters among us. And I appreciate when people show up like that because again, I feel like so many just need to be given the permission to be like you don't have to feel shameful or feel guilty about and against the programming, right? Because you use the words like anxiety and depression and people are like, "Oh no, those are clinical diseases that I don't." No, it's frequency. It's frequency and you're experiencing it and talk about it because when you talk about it it dissipates because it's just frequency wanting to express itself. It happens to be expressing itself in your human vehicle
Yeah.
and it doesn't hold any power over you. It's not your thing. So let it just express itself in the way that it needs to and let it move on, right?
Sometimes I just need to scream in my car.
Yeah,
Pull over
absolutely.
and I just scream and then cry. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready to move on now.
There. And you moved
I
it
mean,
on.
it is a
Absolutely.
real thing. And we do need permission. We need permission to not be perfect. We need
Mhm.
permission to be ourselves. We need permission to actually have somebody just hold space while we cry. And I
Yes.
don't need you to fix me. And actually, as a healer, I'm not here to fix you. I'm
Right.
here to support you to become your own healer. I'm here to
Yes.
support you through a process, to offer you some tools, to help you work the energy. But actually, this is here for you.
Yes.
How can
Yes.
I support you best? How can I hold your hand while you feel this thing? Because I can't take that part away. I can only hold your hand.
I love that so much. That's beautiful. So, one last bit, and I want you to leave us with this your magic, and it's been magical the entire time. I'm sure everybody's received all of it. But
Yeah.
if you were to channel one transmission right now for anyone who's listening who feels like they're drowning in their own healing journey, what would spirit want them to hear?
So it's to breathe and be present, to just breathe and be present. And what I see is someone really in the throes of their life. It's busy. They've got children, they're taking care of family, they're working, they're experiencing an opening and they're healing and their gifts, and they don't even know if this is the life they want anymore. Just breathe and be present and aware and really start to open up your practice. And this is opening your channel because we all have one. It's the connection to our higher self. So, where can you take the moments to just be in the chaos? And the chaos isn't just life, but it's also what's happening in our community and in our world. And chaos brings change. So allow yourself to be in the change and know that you're in a change. And I ask Spirit, guide me where I'm needed today. Allow me to be on the path for my highest and best good. So if you don't know, then pull your guides closer. Whether you're speaking God, universe, goddess, animals, all of it is perfect. Whatever you call them closer. Guide me and support me, because as you are able to tune in to just that you're in change, you can follow your intuition even closer.
Beautiful. That's powerful. And I'm sure it's going to resonate with so many people. When you guys listen to the words, just Spirit will highlight things for you. So make sure that you pay attention to the highlights for sure. So, this is why we have these conversations, because real healing isn't branded, it's not curated, it's raw, it's gritty, and it strips you down so that you can finally remember who you are. So,
Mm.
huge gratitude to Cha Cha for bringing not just her wisdom, but her realness into this space. This is what it looks like when someone doesn't just study the work, they embody it. So, if
Mm.
you're curious to explore her world deeper, check the show notes for all the links. And as always, if this conversation sparks something within you, sit with it, journal on it, share it. And as Jessica said, just breathe and keep walking the path. This is Collective Silversations. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Oh, thank you so much, Jody. It was an honor, truly.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Collective Silversations. If today's conversation challenged you, inspired you, or cracked something wide open, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a comment, share it with your circle, and leave us a review. It helps us to reach more of the people who are ready to step up. For those of you who are ready to go even deeper into this work, visit jody-jones.com. The real work begins there. See you next time. Stay awake, stay grounded, and lead yourself forward.